Hi, we've been talking about the ways what they are still affected by popularity and why popularity is so important. And previously we're talking about the ways what might really be built into how our brains are set up and even how our DNA respond and is expressed. But I want to move on by talking a little bit about how popularity is affecting each and every one of us actually thousands of times a day. Specifically, Kyle, we're going to talk about how your experience the popularity when you were younger affect a lot of the ways what they think about our social experiences. But before they do what I'd like for you to watch this video. Just watch the video and you're going to be asked to say a little bit about what you saw in the video. So watch careful. So what we're going to talk about now has been studied by psychologists for many years and it's referred to social information process. Nikki Crick and Ken Dosh were emotion the first to develop a model. It's really a way of taking every single social experience you have and zooming and down into super slow mode. So if you were to try and think about all the tiny little inconsequent process what are happening between the moment what you see something and the moment when you respond, you all divided them up into a few different steps. So the first thing what happens is that there's an event. This could be a big event like someone breaks up with you, or it could be a tiny little event like you walked through a crowd and someone's at you were stable. It turns out that in order of us to respond to what event, there are many little steps what happen, and the first one is there or not the encode what event. So, for instance, if you were walking through a crowd and someone nodded at you, you might even notice it, or you might be asking what no one is interested in looking at you, so you don't really even attend to what happens. It's very common for professor to talk about teaching in their class and rather than notice all of the students that are looking at them and kind of nothing, we really tend to focus on just those students what are looking down and clearly are doing Facebook while they're lecturing. And what's really great example of encoding the idea what they tend to even just notice some things more than others and actually don't even see the other things in their visually files at all. Well, once they see something, once we encoded something and we've said what your brain has brought it to some attention to us, when they have to interpret what is what they're seen or had or felt, and they call the weights are interpretation, and there are many different ways that we might interpret what it is what we just encoded, and we'll talk about what more in just a second. Well, after they've interpreted something, when again really affects inconsiderably, we don't even realize what they're doing to the main decided what is our goal, what are they hoping to achieve this particular situation. Again, super fast, we're not even ever doing in the then the follow through on what this response enactment so in other words, they decide to act out what it is that they say, what they thought rather what they wanted to do, and once they respond what often produce a new event. So for instance, if this all started by someone nodding at you and are deciding to nod back, that might lead to them waving or saying or something like that. If you decide instead to do something right to them, then what might lead to some sort of event that it will start a wild new cycle, and it happens again and again. Well, all of this happiness based on all of prior experience. So every single experience what they had social is stored in the database, and they actually good brain research to say what when they look at how people respond to things is often is involving the centers of our brain involved into biological memory. So we are very frequently driving upon this old experience. Patriarchally, as it turns out, experience the popularity is way to understand, however, social experience happiness to us every single day to day. And sometimes they think about these steps very, very especially. We'll talk about that in a second, but first let's talk about an example where they might see this play out, and I'm going to show you the different pretend people and how they might respond to a similar
but maybe
event.
The second person who kind of was really noticing the eye
imagine
contact
what
or the
in
smile
the
might
Syrian
interpret that by
context
saying,
the first
"Oh, I
person
think
might
maybe that
look at
person's
the
flirting
day
with
and so, for instance, imagine that someone walks by, they look at you, they smile, and they giggle a little bit. Then imagine that in the current step, the first person might look at them and say, I just saw a person language at me. Okay, so because of the details, they really attended to the language. The second person might say, I just saw a person wake, contact, and smile. So they didn't really remember the lake as much. The students show that if you ask them later, they might not ever recall what that happened, or they might not even noticed. So they didn't really remember, but they really noticed the contact and the smile. And the third person may be really the kind of person who doesn't believe what anyone will ever smile at them. And my automatic thought think I immediately associate with that is I think where it is in me somehow. But maybe the second person who kind of was really tight the eye contact and the smile might interpret what by say, oh, I think maybe that person flirting with me. And of course the third person who didn't even see anybody would probably say that the person, I don't even know what you're really talking about. So that the end of the next step would be goal clarification. So if you believe what someone has just teased you, what first person might say, well, in this situation, I want to accept my domination. I really want to make sure what people don't tease me and they know what I'm not the kind of person that shall really be treated that way. So maybe what's their goal? But someone else might say, oh, I am actually scared. They tease me and I'm little bit frightened of I felt really embarrassed of depressed, so I'm going to go withdraw. I really want to get out of this situation. What might be a different goal? The second person who saw the exit some event as something what had to do with flirting might saw, oh whoa, they seem pretty hot, I want to date them. So what might be able to do? So when thinking of all the possible responses, the first person might say, well, I could walk over and hit what person, I could scream out at them, how you kind of like don't do what to me, how I could throw something at this of something like that, while the second person thinks I'm being flirting with, and my goal there is to try and get a date or of this. They might walk by that person and give them a smile back. They might scream out them, oh yeah, oh, they might go hand their number, say that way to text them or something like that. So usually after the scan, all the possibility things they can do, they come up with our response. They decide, okay, person number one says, I'm going to go through my bag to them. Person number two might say, well, I decided I should just smile at them. What the best way to handle it? Interesting, right? Because decided all that is that way going to do what doesn't mean what actually what we do. A lot of us have really good intonations to do a certain thing, but then they actually go and do it. It comes out a little bit different than they express it. So the person that decide to throw their book might decide to also scream out at the same time like the address. The second person might decide to smile back and also say something like, hey, how's it going, or something like that. So these steps are happening really quickly. And what's interesting is that the reason why these things are because of the experience we've had before, and especially the experience have had with popularity. What they've learned is that can predict how people will encode things, how they will interpret things, and so on. What goal they'll make and what responses they consider, select, and then act, all based on how popular they were as younger kids. Let's create a template I was of us interacting the world, and it affects us thousands of times a day. Sometimes they think about this very seriously and very specially. So, for instance, imagine you go on the first day. There may be some of these steps that you debate about and ruminate about forever. And what shows us what they really are engaging in these steps, but remember, most of the time happiness automatical with us even realized them. So as an example, before I asked you to watch a little video. The video had a box, and around the box there is the circles of different colors. It would have been perfectly appropriate to respond to that video that what you saw were 3 circles and a box. But what story we see, the way what we interpret, what stimulus tell us a lot about ourselves. I have shown this video to many people over the years, and I want to give a few examples of the ways that people will vary when they asked. I have shown this video to so for instance, some people will say in a more natural way what they say. Their calcar originally in the red and the blue circle followed. The red stacks because the door closed before he got there. This separate nature response. Look how these contracts, these
some of them assumed a lot of aggression. Some thought that they were just playing.
Maybe
all of that has a lot to do with
aggression.
What it was like for us growing up and how
what
popular
they said
we were.
was the blue
So
circle
overall,
its
hopefully this information is showing you that popularity in fact really still does matter. It's mattering in a way that's affecting every single social interaction that we have as adults, little by little. Our social experiences comprise a central database. We can change that database over time. But the database is overwhelmingly filled with experiences that happened when our brains became adult brains. And that was at the transition to adolescence.
Clearly blames
So
green
the
circle for
experiences we had as adolescents, which we mostly cared about popularity back then, they're the most important pieces of that database, which is why popularity plays a really big role at that point. That database tells us what we even see in the world around us, what we hear. how we interpret that, what goals we make, and what behaviors we think about, we select, and we decide to act on. We all have biases, whether you're very, very popular or you were very unpopular. Green circle for excluding it. Breaks into the room. Looks like there's violence between green and blue circles. Another person said, blue banged on the door and forced it open. Blue was very mad, bouncing all over the place. Green faced up to blue. Blue and green fought. Green and red left the room and closed the door on blue. You can take a look at some of these. Here's one of my favorite. Blue busted down the box in a violent, narcissistic rage and then provokes green into a fight. Green was not in the mood for fighting because she was happy and friends with red. Red chilled in the corner, scared of blue. Then green took red out of the box. As you can see, these different scenarios and the ways that people are describing them suggest that there are all kinds of attributions that we make. Just by seeing a simple video in which we all encoded the same information. 3 circles and a box. But the way that we interpret that is dramatically different. Some people thought that they saw circles of different genders. They assumed that one was a male, one was a female. Some of them assumed a lot of aggression. Some thought that they were just playing. All of that has a lot to do
they can change
what it was like for us growing up
over time, but the
So overall, hopefully this information is showing you that popularity in fact really still does matter. It's mattering in a way that's affecting every single social interaction that we have as adults, little by little. Our social experiences comprise a central database. We can change that database over time, but the database is overwhelmingly filled with experiences that happen when our brains became adult brains. And that was at the transition to adolescence. So the experiences we had as adolescents, which we mostly cared about popularity back then, they're the most important pieces of that database, which is why popularity plays a really big role at that point. That database tells us what we even see in the world around us, what we hear, how we interpret that, what goals we make, and what behaviors we think about, we select, and we decide to act on. We all have biases, whether you're very, very popular or you were very unpopular. We all have different biases. The question is, what biases